Hi everyone, how are you doing? I hope you are doing well. A great welcome to you all. We're delighted to have you here in this episode of Sharing Global Views. This show is part of Sharing Economy Initiative, which aims to promote common development and well-being for all. Also, here is the space for us to meet, learn, and share our thoughts and creative ideas with brilliant leaders and experts on different global matters. More importantly, we want to make a change, make the world more sustainable and a better place step by step. If you want to know more about Glaze and Sharing Global Views, welcome follow us via our social media platform. So, how are you and what's new?
I'm very good, Helena. Thank you so much for the introduction. Good to see everyone again. Now, Sharing Global View is a program. It's more like a tea talk, meant to be very casual, share something interesting from the world every day, every week. And now we should have in the early morning time for the Americans and European, have a good lunch tea. And also in Asia areas, we're going to have probably more after dinner, a nice dinner tea. So today we actually having a very interesting as one of the procession for the earlier education level kind of topic, but more on the future type of education, which is young talent. When talent get into real workspace, what we can do better at this global stage. So we actually having a very, very important guests who have a very interesting and good background. Before I introduce the topic, we really want to again welcome our main host of the day, which is President Jose Maria Figueres, who is also the standing chairman for Glaze. Hello, how are you, President?
Hello, T. Hello, Elena. Hello, friends. A great privilege and honor to be with all of you again on this series of conversations, which, as Elena and T have mentioned, are all about the future, the sharing economy. The Global Alliance for the Sharing Economy, GLAZE, is a nonpartisan, non-political, nonprofit organization founded precisely at the right time to lead the transition out of this crisis into a sharing economy, an economy where we can share things, projects, business models, opportunities, assets, and many others in terms of creating better livelihoods around the world, and at the same time, taking better care of the natural resources of our planet. Now, in this series of conversations, we have shared different conversations on business models, on the way that culture can influence a sharing economy, on different companies that are already sharing in the sharing economy, and provide a fantastic example for entrepreneurs and for upcoming sharing businesses. But today, this is a very special opportunity because nothing more important than to share talent and to see the way in which we can prepare the talent, the future generations, for a world which is going to be very different from the old one we left behind the crisis. And precisely to talk to us about this notion of sharing talent, we have with us a very unique presenter today, and it is my privilege to introduce Colin Tang. Colin is a Singaporean who spent most of his 30-year career working and living overseas in many places in the US, in China, Taiwan, Japan, Vietnam, the Netherlands, amongst others. He is a semiconductor engineer, which then turned into HR. And he's worked in HR in leading companies around the world, including Apple, Intel, Nippon Paint, Texas Instruments, Philips Semiconductors, amongst others. He has also been a terrific entrepreneur. He has done 11 startups involving R&D centers, wafer fabrication plants, assemblies, and test factories. He holds a chemical engineering degree from the University of Alberta in Canada and an MBA in international business from Rutgers in New Jersey. He speaks and writes fluent English, Mandarin, and Cantonese, and he's here with us today to converse about sharing talent in a sharing economy. Colin, so good to have you with us. Please take it away. We're anxious to hear your thoughts on how we can share talent into the future.
Thank you, Mr. President. And once again, thank you yourself and everybody to have me on the show. I think it's going to be a very enjoyable session. And I think I'm going to start with a story. You know, a story I heard when I was working in Apple. So it is the year 2008, and the world is also in a crisis, but it is a 2008 financial crisis. Everybody, most of the company is retrenching, is freezing their hiring, even in Silicon Valley. And the CFO of Apple went to Steve Jobs and said, Steve, everybody is freezing hiring, they are retrenching. Apple is doing okay, but maybe we should stop hiring for a while till the crisis is over. Everybody loves to listen to finance because they hold the bucks, right? They hold the cash in hand and they know best. But Steve is amazing. He said, you know what? No, I'm not going to freeze hiring. Instead, I'm going to hire more, especially in the area of R&D. Because right now, a lot of people, good engineers, talented R&D talents is outside in the market. They have either been retrenched and they are coming at available and they are coming at a very cheap price. In the past, when you want to get them, you have to pay a premium. So we actually went out and we hire lots of R&D talent. And what is the result? You may wonder, oh, wow, Apple have deep pocket. But in the year 2008, Apple does not have deep pocket yet. We launched our iPhone in 2007. It's a successful product, but we don't have deep pocket yet. But if you remember iPhone 4, that was launched in 2010, one of the most popular product then. It is the results of all this talent that we hired in 2008 that put this together. So think about it. In a crisis, if you're able to think differently, able to view it as an opportunity, you set the future, like Mr. President said. How do we set the future ready, right? So this is one story that I want to kick off with, because I think today the session is about sharing talent or sharing workforce, and I want to use this as a prelude to what I'm going to share. I'm going to start by also sharing that, sharing of resources is actually not new. We are used to the Uber, the sharing of the car, Airbnb, the sharing of housing, even sharing of bicycle, right? Because we want to be sustainable to the world. And even recently, I'm very proud to say that the company I'm working for, To Joy, we even started getting people to share planes, helicopter, even pilotless drone. So sharing of commodities is the way to go. However, sharing of talent is actually less obvious. I think we do not hear a lot of story of this. We may not even see successful model. And even if we hear of some, it is likely within a same company, the sharing of what we say, shared service center, a centralized hub. Of course, some of the other model I heard that different companies come together to share is also mostly employee shuttle bus, sharing the cafeteria to save costs. But you really sharing talent, you don't really hear of those. But recently, during this pandemic in China, I heard of this. I think it's a brilliant and amazing story. So, during the pandemic in China, China really locked us down. Lockdown. People does not go out to get their food, but they have to eat. And so the online supermarket become very popular. You order it online, the food get delivered to you. It's a booming business for them. While the restaurant, no sitting, restaurant is freezing hiring, they are retrenching, they are shutting their thing down. One side is doing really well, one side is actually suffering. And the amazing story is that this company called Fresh Hippo in China, it is an e-commerce supermarket. They actually went to the restaurant and said, you know what? I need staff. And I can, of course, hire somebody else, but I need somebody who really understands the food business. And your staff is sitting around, idling. You may even have to get rid of them. Why don't you second them to me? Secondment. I don't want to hire them. They're still your employee. I pay you to second to me. And as a result, their business, boom, exploded. I should use the word. The customer is happy. We managed to get through the pandemic lockdown with, not in hunger, but in with a full stomach. Like Fresh Hippo, found all the workforce, the talent that they need to keep their business going. The restaurant managed to keep their people to continue until the lockdown is over. Unfortunately, the world is still in the pandemic. I think we are seeing around the corner. I think the good time is coming, but the pandemic is still not over. At least I don't think for some more months. And even when the pandemic is over, I think from this experience, a lot more work will be remote support. Working from home will be on the rise. So the question to us is, you know what? This is one of the biggest crises that mankind have seen. How do we turn this into a new economy era? Can we come out stronger? So I've been sitting on it, thinking of it. I think one of the things is, I even came up with a model which I want to share with you. I think it all calls for what we call a paradigm shift. Okay? We need to shift our paradigm. If we keep on thinking that, oh, you know what? We can share our resources, we can share our commodity, but we cannot share our talent. We will never be able to be stronger. So the model that I'm going to share is what I call the top model, T-O-P, top. How to bring you to the top. What does T-O-P stand for? T for thought. Do you have the thought to want to do it? Are you willing to think out of the box? Are you willing to think that it can be done? Oh, the opportunity. Is there an opportunity like what Fresh Hippo find? I think that if the crisis does not exist, the restaurant is not going to entertain them on their request to, hey, I'm going to second my people to you. So is there an opportunity right now while the different economy, the different world's economy is recovering at different pace? Is there an opportunity? And a P, is there a platform that can tie this company together that help to make sure sharing of talent or sharing of workforce become easier and more doable? So this is what I call the top model, T-O-P. Do you have the thought process to do that? Do you have the opportunity and do you have the platform to do it? So with this, I think the next thing that I just want to share will be like, why is this important? Why sharing of sharing of talent in the economy is important? I'm going to use this to think of three ways, right? What is the three parties that can benefit from it? The country economy, the company, and the employee themselves. How will a country benefit from it, even after the crisis? To me, I find that countries develop at a very different pace. And countries, sometimes when they find a new way to improve their economy, one of the challenges they sometimes find is that they do not have sufficient talent type. So example, a country that used to be in textile or farming, when suddenly they say, I want to go into technology, like Costa Rica, Mr. President brought Intel into Costa Rica. I think one of the challenges, hey, does Costa Rica have the talent then to truly make sure that the startup of the Intel plant can be really, really fast and successful? I bet you invested a lot of talent, a lot of your resources into getting this ready. Every company faces that. So, but when you share economy, you will find that, you share your talent, you will find that, hey, it does buy the country time to ensure that when even you have a shortage of talent, that talent that you have, you can actually share around to bring up more successful model. And from there, more talent will train even more talent. They will provide more job security, jobless rate will go down. it will help the learning. And at the end of it, you know what's the best thing? The country will get more taxes. They will get more income tax from the people. So that's how I think a country can gain through encouraging sharing of talent. What about the company? I think company example, Fresh Hippo. They don't really have to always say, oh, I must own the person. I must hire them. I must rent more office space. So in terms of office space, it's the saving of footprint. They may even be able to share the cost of the talent. So I give an example that maybe some of you are more familiar, so that we think out of the box. Used to be when in China, when we hire housekeeper or we call maid, we have the maid living in the house. So the maid is staying with you 24/7, right? You have it, but you definitely won't let the maid work 24/7. She draw a fixed salary. But recently, these tasks have changed. Most people say, you know what? When I have somebody of a stranger, staying in my house, I do not have a lot of privacy. So the model become part-time model. The maid work maybe for 2 families or 3 families. But because she work for different families, she has better control of her time. She can say, hey, I'm willing to work harder. I'm willing to work 5 hours in each of the home. 5 + 5 + 5, 15 hours. And by doing that, she's able to command a higher premium. She earns more. And that is, again, a value add to her. So this is just a simple example. But if you think about it, sharing economy, when you share the resources by thinking out of the box, the country will gain, the company again, and the employee will also gain. And I think the last part to get everybody start thinking about is, we used to always think that everything must be B2B, B2C. So even of sharing of a talent is like the Fresh Hippo. It is a B2B, right? Fresh Hippo reach out to the restaurant is a B2B business. But I think there's also a different model that I call it I2B, individual to business. It is like the housekeeper's model. Hey, I'm an individual. I don't tie myself to a company. I use my skill and offer my skill to different employer. Can we do that? Is it possible? Can we even do it with sales? They will say, oh, but you can't do it. There's a, Colin, that's not a good example. You can only deal with it's a housekeeper, right? But can you do it with salespeople? Can you do it even with R&D people? Is it possible? I thought about it and I came up with something to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I can. So I'm just thinking, so I'll give an example. Let's say a car company and a tire company. A car company, a car would require tires to run on. They have salespeople and they have to work through with the same distributor, the same channel, the same accessory. Why can't they share the same sales person who, when they go and sell a car, can at the same time sell the tire in preparation for future tire changes? They own the same talent. So I'm going to stop here. This is the sharing that I have for you to get your thoughts going. And I'm just going to repeat the model that I encourage you to think of, the top model, TOP, and also the I2B model. Okay. So, Mr. President, thank you. Today's my sharing for today.
Colin, thank you so much for generously sharing your talent. I have to say that. Thank you for generously sharing your talent on how we can share talent in the sharing economy. I think it's wonderful. And the examples that you have given us certainly call our attention and make us think about other opportunities that are out there. The most recent example you just gave, why can't the seller of vehicles also be the seller of tires? I mean, those vehicles are going to require tires in the future, the same skill sets, the same things. You would probably even be more inclined to believe the car seller on the stories he can tell you about the best tires, because of course he knows a lot more about the car than the person that would sell the tires to begin with. So all types of possibilities. I have some questions and comments that I would like to share with you. But Elena, let me turn it over to you. We may already have some questions from our audience.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, Ms. Zhang, do you have any questions?
Yes. Okay, very happy to meet everybody here. Mr. President, I'm glad to meet you. Yeah. And I working in the university. So dealing with some students overseas study, especially in China at this moment. We also provide the students courses, online courses. So I think we have come to the age of the global learning, the time. It means the students in the university, they can learn the courses in the university, but also they can learn other courses from other universities, especially from other countries. So we try to let our students get more and more information and knowledge from other countries, other universities. So in this online and offline learning time, so we hope our students have a chances to learn more courses from other universities. After the graduation, they can work in China. Also, they can find a job abroad. So the things I consider at the moment, whether we Chinese student after graduation, they can find a job worldwide. It's easier for them to find a job in Malaysia, in Japan, in Korea, in European countries, even in England, America, and so on. So it's very important things. This is the future talent, how they easily have also have a platform for them to find a job. So that's my consideration. So in my mind, I hope they have a very easily to find their job, especially they have the language problem, and then they have the skill, and then they are very young, so it is easier for them to find a job worldwide. Even the foreigner also can come to China to find a job. So that's my think about the talent, sharing talent. Yeah, the sharing the intelligence, the people to come to China, and we Chinese people come outside. That's the globally learning time and the globally job hunting. So by this way, we Chinese young people can go outside to learn more and more things and work for other foreign companies outside. So that's my understanding.
Thank you, Mr. Tao, for your sharing this concept with us. And you know, when you were talking about the opportunity to take advantage of talent in universities for young Chinese students to go abroad and students from other countries to go to China, I was reminded again of the P for platform that Colin was talking to us about, because of course today with the platforms we have, such as the one we're using here, Zoom, but Teams and so many others, students don't even have to travel to attend a university abroad. They can very easily do it from their home, from wherever they're living, from wherever they're working, if they're working part-time, because we now have the platforms that we can use much more widely than before. the crisis. So going back to what Colin was saying, the platform becomes absolutely essential in terms of sharing, in this case, talent. But thank you so much for sharing
Okay.
insights on this with us.
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
Back to you, Elena.
Okay, thank you. Also, here's another question, Colin, from an engineer to HR director for Apple. It's kind of a huge change. So any stories and career suggestions you want to share with the young professionals?
Sure.
That is quite strange.
I do have a good story of how I make the transition from an engineer to a HR, right? So it's actually a story. So I was actually a semiconductor engineer, and because that time I remember that is in 1995. That time, most of the time, HR is actually more administrative. But my company is actually really forward-looking. It says Texas Instrument. They think that we should look for somebody who really understands the business so that they can become a partner to it. So they say, hey, you know what? I think Colin is doing a pretty good job. He knows the business. He's pretty good with people. Maybe he would consider coming to join us rather than looking for a traditional HR, who study human resource management. So they came to me and my first word like, no kidding. Why would I want to become a HR after studying so hard for an engineering degree? But at that same time, there is something happening in the world. As a HR, I started out with recruiting and I was looking through resume and reading. And that was the time whereby Kodaks was in that transition that, the world is going into digital form of taking photo. And Kodak is still using the film. And as a result, a lot of talented Kodak companies, employees lose their job because they couldn't transit fast enough. And to me, that it was like, oh no, Colin, what happens if semiconductor will no longer be needed when you're 40, when you're 50? It will be a terrible time to lose your job because everybody will say, well, you'll be too old, Can I teach an old dog a new trick? I'll be in trouble. So for me, and then I start thinking like, you know what? Human resources, it is like finance. It is like golf. You get better with age. And it is fungible, portable from industry to industry, right? I can go from the chemical industry to semiconductor industry to the finance industry to investment, to banking. It is a fungible skill. And you know what? If I think differently, maybe I will have a chance to shine in a group of human resources. So that was a story that helped me to think that, hey, how can I continue to learn and yet that my skill will never be outdated? It is fungible. So even today, I continue to keep that lesson close to heart to say, how do I always read the world ahead of time? How do I make sure I make the best of it? And actually, there's also the reason that prompted me to move from Apple to Joy. I see that to Joy, the sharing of economy is not only being responsible to the world, but it is something that the world will be moving towards, being pioneered by Uber, by Airbnb. But I think even more bigger company will come out from it. So that is my story of why I make my transition.
Thank you. Great story.
Colin, yeah, I agree with Elena. What wonderful stories. I mean, your story about Jobs, Steve Jobs going counter-cyclical and hiring in a moment when people were firing, and now this story of how you transitioned from a semiconductor engineer into HR is a wonderful story. So a question, if I may, Colin. Very recently we read about in Germany, Aldi and McDonald's beginning to share staff. Made the headlines because, of course, we're not used to that type of arrangements between two companies that are not necessarily in the same exact line of business, but they are both in the food industry. And it caught the attention of many around the world. Do you see that as a growing tendency, that type of arrangements between companies? Now that I mention it, I think that some of the examples you gave are right along those same lines. Do you see that as a growing trend towards the future? And if so, how do we maximize its value from an HR perspective? How do we maximize that value so that it's good for a country, company, and collaborators?
A very good question, Mr. President. And I think to answer your question is that I think this trend will not only grow, it will accelerate. I think what is needed right now is actually more successful story for people to have a paradigm shift. They see that, hey, people can actually do that. Oh, but they're in the same food industry. But if one day they see an example that say, even different industry, they are able to come together. But how did that come together? What is the opportunity that make them come together? What is the thought process behind it? I think it will then help to spur on. I think in life is always this way, right? The more example you have, it actually help you to think better of the box and either follow the same trend or even create your new trend. So I think it will be the next big thing in the world. This is my own reading.
Thanks a lot. T, do we have any questions on your side?
Yes, sir. We have one question from audience asking, now, apart from the trend, we asking about challenges. So Colin, and the evolution of this talent sharing really get more flexibility to employees, say individuals. But is that actually proceed giving out more challenges to the normal company HR when they employ those individuals or normal employees?
Oh, very good question. I thank the person for posing this question. It is going to be challenging. And then, of course, I'll make a joke of it first is that it will only make sure that I have job security, because the more difficult it is, the more HR need to think, the more they need better HR, right? So job security for us. Okay, so there's one. Okay. I think it's going to be challenging. I think I want to use another example first before I come. I think example like, hey, will we have driverless car running around on the road? Actually, I think the technology is already matured enough. I think we have the 5G, we have a lot of smart engineer going around. But if you were, from what I heard, it is not the technology so much, but sometimes it is the setting, the law, the rule. What happens if on the same time on the road, you have a car driven by a driver and a driverless car and you got into an accident? Who is having the major responsibility? How is it going to be resolved? So sometime when all this thing is not ironed out, we will never see driverless car out. People may start doing pilot program and everything. So to answer that question, I think the most difficult part is the infrastructure in terms of law, labor law, in order. When people push it out, are they willing to take the first step to do pilot program? Is people willing to come together? And if something bad happens, every good thing always have a good intention, but something along the way, something bad happen, how will the court of law rules it? Is the ruling stifling that, or is going to actually help to pave a smoother way for more things to happen? I look into my crystal ball right here. I still don't have the answer, but I think it is definitely going to be challenges. But I do not think that it will be something that cannot be overcome. It all depends on the opportunity. Whether is it big enough for the country, for the lawmaker to think that it is beneficial for the bigger group of the world, for themselves to want to make it happen. Thank you.
Colin, I enjoyed your joke on of course how all of this makes HR much more indispensable and therefore provides jobs for yourself and for your team. But joking aside, I mean, I think it does call, T's question does call for the rethink of how companies organize their HR departments, because what you are talking about here is actually beginning to look at talent, which is multifaceted, and beginning to look at companies outside of your own company with whom you could probably be sharing talent in a way that is non-compete from a market perspective, but that is beneficial to both companies and therefore creates societal value. So fantastic. Thank you so much. Godfrey, questions that may have come in on your side?
Yeah, so, well, I've had a few. The previous one kind of took one away. This has been one of the more interesting and engaging conversations that we've had in a while. So thank you, Colin. My first question that, it's hanging in there, but we can move to the second one, was about the future of like what future tendencies you saw in HR, in talent in general. But the main question I want to ask, so you spoke about HR being something like a fundamental, something like finance, economy, like it's something that we all have to have in companies, and it'll remain like this for a while. So what are some of the key aspects that we should learn as in the corporate world, or in the business world, or entrepreneurial world, that you would like to share with us, some of the basic tips that we don't really know as a day-to-day business entrepreneur or office worker?
Good question. Very difficult to answer, but very good question. And as you're sharing the question, what came to me is just this afternoon at 2 p.m. I actually have a conversation with our global CEO, Mr. Junga. Okay, and I had this conversation with him. So I'm going to share at that level rather than going through, because it's a very big topic that you are asking me to cover. I share with him to say, you know what? Sometimes as HR, we tend to quickly give solution, because I think we really know our work. We have jumped into giving solution. But sometimes the solution we give, how do we piece them together to be a very wholesome solution? But even before solution, I told him that we really need to take a few steps back. And I proposed this to him, and I'm putting it together, and I'm going to share it openly today, right? I told him I'm putting together what I call the HR strategic blueprint. I know that everybody loves the word strategic. And who doesn't want to like to do strategic work, right? But I told him that, say, hey, but you notice that I do not call it a strategic plan. I call it a strategic blueprint, because we need a blueprint to know what do we actually want to build. What exactly do we want to see our company becoming? A blueprint is, are we building a villa? Are we building a condo? Are we building a palace? You need to have your blueprint, because when you have a blueprint, then you will know what type of workforce, what type of material, what type of system you need. That you need to have that ready. And when you really look at it, there's practically only two major parts. What is the talent you have now? What is the workforce you have now? And how do you make the best of it to make sure that they are really delivering? But while doing that, you need to look at a very important part that most people may not be spending time to look at it. Are you being proactive to look 3 to 5 years ahead? So people say, oh, yes, I'm hiring 3 to 5 years. But the thing is, looking 3 into 5 years is actually not that easy. You won't know tomorrow. How is the world changing? So when you say, I'm thinking 3 to 5 years ahead, I'm hiring 3 to 5 years ahead, are you already very clear? 3 to 5 years, you already know what new businesses you are going. You already know how big you want your business to expand. Do you know, are you going global? Are you going international? What exactly is your need, your gap, and the approaches that you think that you should be doing? So Godfrey, I know I'm answering in a more simplified form. Forgive me. Okay.
I like it. Thank you so much. It's been a very nice jump start to an early morning here.
Thank you.
So, Colin, we have to begin bringing it to a close. Before I go back to you for last comments on your side, if I may, I would like to try to share here some of the takeaways that we have been able to take from lessons that we've been able to take from your conversation. So let me share three. The first one is think counter-cyclical. You know, when you went to Steve Jobs and you said, well, maybe this is a time, finance is saying that we should lower costs, et cetera, because of the financial crisis, maybe we should stop HR hiring. He was counter-cyclical and said, full steam ahead. This is a time to bring in talent that will come in at a much lower cost to the company than in normal times. And the product of that some years later was a tremendous success of the iPhone 4. So the first lesson here coming out of the crisis is don't let the crisis get you down and think counter-cyclical in terms of taking advantage of the opportunities, and also look at how you can lower costs by sharing resources. The second takeaway that I take is your top model, T as in tango, O as in opportunity, and P as in platform. So top model, top for, are you willing to put in the additional effort to be at the top, to think out of the box? O for opportunity. What are the opportunities that you see, especially coming out of the crisis? There are many opportunities to grow in different directions that all can make a lot of sense. And thirdly, do you have a platform that you can utilize on which to be able to share and grow the opportunities that you envision? The top model. I love that. And the third one, the third lesson, Colin, that I take here is what I call the 3 C's. Now, I added the C to what you mentioned. You talked about the C of a country. It benefits the country. You talked about the C of a company. It benefits the company. And then you talked about employees. I choose to change that for collaborators. So it's the 3C model of Colin Tang: country, company, collaborators, because I think collaborators goes beyond the people that work for the company into the ecosystem in which you participate. And therefore it provides additional opportunities to share. Thank you, Colin. Back to you. Last thoughts and comments before we close this.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I must say that you are such a wise man. You actually helped me coin the phrase of the 3C. And I hope that you allow me to patent that, right? The 3 Cs. I only have one thought, and I think people may have heard of this saying, but I think it really applies to a sharing economy or sharing of talents. If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go as a team or you go together. That is sharing. You share and you will go far. So I think that is my parting inputs to say at the end of it, the world tomorrow, we need to share the success, the pain, and we will go far and will be highly successful. Thank you, Mr. President.
Colin, thank you ever so much for a most engaging conversation. I'm sure that our audience has enjoyed it in the Americas, in Europe, and of course in Africa and Asia as well. We hope to have you back, Colin, on this series of talk shows. It has been just absolutely fantastic to have you, to listen to your stories. You're such a wonderful storyteller. And life is all about being able to share experiences through storytelling. It makes it all a lot more meaningful. Mr. Chow, thank you so much for your comments here and for your thoughts on how students around the world can begin to share knowledge, talent, and the ecosystem of universities that we have created all over the world. And thank you, T, Elena, and Godfrey for being the co-hosts on this conversation. Friends, thank you ever so much. We invite you to join us exactly at the same time next Wednesday, the 12th of May, back for another conversation on sharing global views. Until then, have great days, transform the crisis into opportunity, follow the top model of Colin Tang, and work for the 3 C's: improve country, company, and collaborators. Thank you so much. And until
Thank
next
you.
the 12th. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, President.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Is the